Hey, this is Brian Bowman, founder and CEO of The Complete Me, talking to Aaron Shildkrout from HowAboutWe. Aaron, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for helping with the keynote for I8 in Beverly Hills. Hey, Aaron, in a sentence or two, what makes HowAboutWe unique?
HowAboutWe is the offline dating site. We're the only dating site that's ever been created that's entire premise is about getting offline and going on actual dates.
And how do you facilitate that?
The entire basis of people's experience on the site is about posting the actual dates that they want to go on and then connecting quickly around those date ideas and then getting it offline. We also are soon to launch a site for couples that is also oriented around doing things in the real world offline.
Yeah, I saw that. I like that idea a lot. I think it helps deal with the kind of open and closed window surrounding dating and the lifetime value collapse that happens when people leave. So that's great. So, sorry, go ahead.
No.
What do you guys see in terms of online stigma? Do you think that online dating still has a bunch of stigma associated with it? And how important do you feel anonymity or privacy is to the online dating experience?
I think that people experience dating as a private activity inherently because I think it is a private activity. And that a lot of confusion has existed around this word stigma, where people have mistaken the desire for privacy with an experience of a taboo or a stigma. I do think there is a stigma and a taboo about online dating and a discomfort with the perceived unnaturalness of that process. That's really important. But I think that most of the barriers, for instance, to virality or to high levels of social sharing and so forth, particularly on more high-end sites, comes from people's genuine desire for their dating lives to be very private, particularly private from their social networks. And that seems like something that won't actually ever be overcome because it's incredibly human. The stigma piece, I think, is rapidly diminishing and very, very quickly disappearing into a sort of pre-internet historical ancientness that is to be essentially ignored and discarded.
Got it. So a question then around anonymity. Is there a reason you feel sites have mandated anonymity? Is it a function of the business model of charging or gating communication? Or do you believe that anonymity should be a user preference?
Well, that's, I think, a polarizing way of framing the question that I don't agree with. I think that I think there are many factors here. One is some people on many sites, dating and otherwise, experience anonymity as a supporter of free expression, of privacy, of creativity, and of the ability to take risks that they wouldn't necessarily otherwise take. And most of those things are really positive. I think people who run dating sites that charge for the capacity to communicate definitely have reasons to keep people anonymous because there's obviously ways to circumvent paywalls if you know how to contact somebody with an ad tweet or whatever.
Sure.
That's sort of just an obvious business model issue. But I don't think that, I think the questions about whether a site should make your public identity clear are much more about user experience and the types of experience you're trying to create than they are about business model. Although there are obviously those sort of pieces of the issue, but those seem circumventable in lots of different sort of just clever ways to me.
Sure. So to that end, or at least somewhat related to it, do you think criminal background checks are important for subscribers or for you, members of dating services in general?
What do you mean by important?
Well, the recent announcement by several of the dating services that they are enforcing criminal background checks, at least on subscribers, not on their whole base, but on the small percentage that actually subscribe. Do you believe that is a necessary service that dating services should offer?
I'm going to not comment on that.
Okay. Yeah, because the second part of the question was really Facebook and LinkedIn. It's not kind of table stakes for them, though they have a different identity model.
What I'll say is I think it's very important for dating sites and all sites that involve interaction, particularly among strangers, to take very seriously people's privacy, people's safety, the positive nature of the community, and to try to protect that in whatever ways possible, and to really go to great lengths to create community and to create policies that support that kind of safety. And for each site, it's probably different depending on the particularities of that site. But in general, I think that principle is pretty universal.
Got it. By the way, how do you folks make money?
Currently, our site, HowAboutWe.com, is a dating site where you pay in order to send most types of messages. It's a subscription model where you pay a monthly fee in order to get complete access to all of our advanced features.
Okay. And how do you guys match people, or do you?
We think about this question of matching in a pretty particular and different way. Our whole goal is to help people get offline on actual dates. We think that chemistry happens offline, and our whole idea is that people should meet in the real world, do things that they like to do, have fun, and see what happens. That said, we definitely understand that it's important to have an online experience that connects you with the people that you're most likely to be excited about meeting offline. So our entire framework for matching and for thinking about who you seek, because obviously there are choices that we implicitly make about who that is, are based on who we think you're going to have the best experience on actual dates with. And that drives out all of our thinking about any kind of set of systems about who we show to who.
And how are you deriving that information? Is it based on interests? Is it personality based, or just an expressed preference in terms of kind of a basic dating profile and what the person has expressed as an interest in a date?
It's actually much more based on what we experience as people's actual behavior on the site. So we glean from users' behavior what it is that they're implicitly telling us they're looking for and they want. And then we use lots of techniques that are algorithmic and sort of technical in order to try to give you what it is that you're implicitly telling us that you're looking for. And we don't do it in a way that's like, we really don't try to talk about matching as like the thing we're providing. We think that, like, again, chemistry is not something that is created through an algorithm. It's something that's created between two people connecting in the real world. And our job is to make that happen. And that's what we talk about, and that's what we want to help you experience.
Got it. So to the end, when we're talking about algorithmic matching, kind of Eli's article that came out debunking scientific or personality matching as a way of kind of predictively analyzing long-term relationship success. Do you feel like scientific matching is not an approach that the industry should embrace, or it's just orthogonal to your business and it's not something you guys are looking at?
Well, I don't know anything about what the industry should embrace. I mean, I basically think the industry is broken and we're trying to fix it. So that's the first thing. And I would say, secondly, everybody who's using the internet understands, or most people at least, understands the power of technology to help get you what you want and to help facilitate an amazing experience, both online and offline. Our whole goal is to have that technical power be applied to creating amazing offline experiences. And that is the key differentiator for us. We don't have a model that's built around the idea that we want you to stay online chatting forever, doodling around for hours and hours, engaged in long distance like chat relationships. That's like not at all what we optimize for. And that to me is the really important counter to the world of scientific matchmatching, actually. But just to be clear, like, of course, technology, if you sign up for any dating site that, let's say, has 1 million users in New York City, the dating site is implicitly making big choices about who they show you, no matter what. if they show you the newest people, if they show you the most popular people, if they show you the people who have the same religion as you, if they show you people who want to go the same places as you, those decisions are absolutely inevitable. And of course, you can be smarter or less smart about providing real value to your customers on that basis. And everybody who's serious in this business thinks about that. The bigger question is, what are you optimizing for? And we're optimizing for real life connection. And that, I think, is what makes us unique.
Got it. Hey, can you hold for just 1 second, please?
Sure.
Do you feel that the integration of kind of social networking features, whether that's friends, the interest graph pulled out of social profiles, is an important component of dating, or no?
Well, definitely not necessarily at all. That would be a really, really strange prerequisite, I think, for goodness. I definitely think that there is a business or a set of businesses that can be built on your social graph that help you to find people to date. I don't think anybody's ever done that well yet, but I do think that somebody could. And I'm actively thinking about that question all the time.
So to that end, how would you define social dating? Is it different than the experiences that you folks are offering? Clearly, there are only a handful of companies experimenting with it today. But how would you define what social dating could be?
Well, I guess what I would say is social is a word that basically means nothing at this point. It's just so overused that I think the particularities are far more illuminating than that general statement. And I think that there are a number of possible ways to use your social, quote unquote, data in order to provide a better experience, from smarter connections to figuring out how to facilitate introductions, to using your friend graph in order to understand the kinds of people that you tend to hang out with, and so forth. So, and virality is obviously a huge piece of this question. I mean, the main attraction for most, especially startup dating sites around being quote unquote social, is the potential of some viral dream that's been attained only by very mainstream premium dating sites. So I think that there's a great potential. I think it's very, very hard, and there's a reason why many, many people have tried, and the startup path of dating is littered with the skeletons of those attempts.
So why do you think that major dating services have not tried to integrate in the social graph or the interest graph?
Oh, because their models are totally antithetical to that for many reasons. First of all, they're based on brands that are all about privacy, about anonymous experience, about really protecting those aspects of your interaction. And to add like a big social element that would really skew that piece. Secondly, honestly, if you really understand the dating business, you know that the model for the major players, and particularly eHarmony and Match, are based on very, very systematic ROI calculations against paid advertising. And to skew or mess with that model and that core dynamic is very dangerous. I mean, the conversion rate dynamics, the renewal dynamics, the re-upgrade dynamics are all tied into one big, very effective system for monetizing paid acquisition. And there's no real motivator to massively mess with that model. Certainly not from Match. eHarmony, I think, is in a deep contemplation right now about what they're going to do going forward. And it'll be interesting to see. They've done some slightly more social stuff recently, and I don't think that's the direction they should actually go if they want to grow in size. But it's certainly worth a contemplation on their part.
So I don't know if you would define it this way, but I'm curious your definition of social discovery as a way of saying broadly, it's about meeting new people. I mean, the way I can think about Facebook is it's for nurturing the relationships you already have. There really isn't a destination where you go to meet new people for various activities, whether it's dating or, bunko or poker or running friends. And I'm curious how you would define social discovery and whether you think it is a superset of dating.
Will you say that again and just reframe it a little bit?
Yeah,
so I
sure.
understand what you're really trying to get out there?
Yeah. In looking at companies that are recently launching, they call themselves social discovery, right? Not dating, even though dating is a component of the experience. They are building consumer experiences around meeting people for any activity, whether that's for friends, for running, for conversations, some of which end up being about dating. And I'm curious how you would define social.
Who are you thinking of?
So examples would be Circle, Chime In, Sonar, Entro, Banjo, Mingle.
Oh, that's the
Highlight.
All right, so I got what you're talking about now. So what's the question?
Whether you feel social discovery is a superset of dating, and whether or not dating rides underneath social discovery.
Well, I think that the set of sites that you just described, which provide basically a very serendipitous experience of finding people in your area, more or less, with maybe a little bit of context, but pretty context-free, are themselves like a small category that will, is important. I think it does provide some value, but I don't think it's a big business, and I don't think it's a very effective way to date, to find dates and so forth, precisely because it's lacking context. So I do think that some people will use those sites for that, but in general, it'll be a pretty sexualized interaction, and really like not a refined user experience that's designed explicitly for the case of I am single and I'd like to find somebody. And there will always be that stuff. Yelp, Facebook, all of these provide in some ways an experience that always sort of has at its edges the possibility of meeting somebody that you've never met and dating and so forth. And that's fine. But I don't think those would be like monetized dating businesses. And I certainly don't think they'll supplant the need for like incredibly refined user experiences that are built explicitly to support the process of meeting somebody that you really like to date romantically. So no, I guess is my answer.
Okay. Appreciate that. Switching gears then into mobile, what do you feel, not specific to HowAboutWe, but generically as an industry, what do you feel are the most important features for mobile dating?
Well, I guess I would say it depends what market you're going after. I don't know if you've been following Baidu's attack on New York with advertising recently, which has been brilliant, I think, and really, really well done, but very particular to who they're going after. So, I mean, one of the things I think that's not talked about nearly enough in the dating space is that people, who are successful at building dating sites are building brands. Right? And those brands speak to very particular market segments. And there's not one market segment. There are many. So the user of eHarmony, the user of Plenty of Fish, the user of Match, the user of OkCupid, the user of HowAboutWe, these are all different human beings. And obviously there's some Venn diagram like overlap between them. But likewise, from a mobile perspective and from a desktop perspective, the user interaction that should exist is going to be particular to the brand and the target market. And so the blanket question of like dating as though dating is like a thing, I think is a radical misnomer. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I would say on the mobile front is, the big questions are, how sex-oriented is it? One. What do you do about location? And how do you display location? What features do you give based on location? 2. 3, how do you think about time and availability? And how real-time do you imagine the interactions to be? That's a huge question. And people have really not gotten any granularity right on this. It's either Grindr Immediate or Match.com Infinite. OkCupid's attempt to kind of create a quasi, immediate interaction, I think, is not necessarily really a success. I think we are trying to tackle this, and we have a ways to go. So anyways, that's number 3. And then number 4, I think, is like something around vendor information and venues and so forth. And obviously that's big for us, and we're trying to tackle that. It's a couple other people. 5, I think, is just like much more viral distribution, app store strategy, native versus mobile web, like all the sort of more back-endy technical and business perspective stuff related to things like Scout's unbelievable distribution system on mobile. I mean, they're doing an amazing job, and I think we're about to see like a battle between Scout and Badoo for that market segment, the one that Zeus lost essentially, or is losing. And it's going to be one there, and I think that Scout being mobile first is a huge, huge plus for them. Obviously a very different market segment than we're going after. And then the last thing I would say is I do think there's some social / random people nearby that aren't signed up for your app kind of banjo-like potential that could manifest that hasn't been tapped yet. So I'll be interested to see who does that. And then, one more thing I'd say that's really important. So number 7 or whatever number I'm on is international, which is, if you're thinking about international, you have to be thinking about mobile, and many people are, and that's just a biggie.
But that's very helpful. Appreciate that. So, and this may be too specific for How About We or what your kind of strategies are, but I'm curious how important mobile check-ins are for discounting, and whether or not you think consumers, whether it's on a date, pre-date, post-date, function with check-ins, and whether they actually, that's a motivating factor for them.
No, I guess. I think the whole concept of check-in is like is a kind of outdated concept in a lot of ways. And that will happen completely seamlessly, like very, very soon, if not already. And it's much more of there's a much broader question about like just location and its relationship to locations. And I think that there's a huge opportunity there for dating experiences. I'm not sure how real time it'll be, but nobody's come close to tapping that yet. I mean, it's like completely undone territory, but it will be. I mean, somebody's going to sort of solve this in the next couple of years.
And then shifting gears a little into profiles, right? Profiles traditionally have been fairly heavy text-based. Do you think that shifts, and if so, how, especially as we look at distribution of profiles through a mobile device?
Like how do profiles change on mobile? Is that basically?
Yeah, sorry, yes.
I don't know. They look mobile. I think basically take profiles and then layer them on top of the 7 things I just listed, and you'll end up with a great mobile profile. Got it. If you do it right, something like that.
Got it.
I mean, and then the other thing is I think people are really confusing mobile and tablet a lot. They're very different tools. Maybe they'll become less so going forward, but right now I think they're very, very different, and they each need their own solutions.
Okay, good. Is there any questions that we didn't talk that you would like to raise?
Sure, there are many. I think the real question is when we, and possibly a few other companies, although I'm not sure who they are yet, start to create a deep and genuine threat to Match.com's business. What happens? What is Match going to do? OkCupid, was sort of gobbled up by them, and now like that whole, that piece of innovation is, maybe will continue under IAC, maybe not, but non-IAC dating companies who are challenging the mainstream dating space, not the like the 150 million user dating space, but mainstream premier dating subscription service. What's Match's response going to be? I can't wait to see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think they're stuck with the innovator's dilemma. So it'll be interesting. And if I kind of look back at their acquisition strategy of external businesses, it's really been to fill in gaps where they see weakness, whether it's verticals or free dating, etc. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to grow and expand the businesses. Compression starts around the pay-to-communicate business model.
Well, compression, just to be clear, compression has happened many, many times, and they've just bought their competitors,
right,
or destroyed them. And that's awesome. Really effective work. I think that they are very smart, particularly around M&A. They've done just a phenomenal job. That said, I think we'll see what happens going forward as the internet is like changing much, much more rapidly than in the previous years where that worked.
Mm. Hey, kind of an unrelated question to iDate, but out of curiosity, having just closed a round myself, and you guys obviously did
Who did you do is this public?
It is public, yeah. It's Intel Capital, Crunch Fund with Michael Arrington, and Plenty of Fish are the core investors.
And what was the round?
It was a seed round, 1.24 million.
Okay, got it.
I'm curious.
For equity or on a convertible note?
It's all note, convertible note. What do you have to say to entrepreneurs trying to raise money in the dating space? I mean, I certainly have talked to a number of them and have seen a number of challenges myself with regards to the way VCs look at the space as a whole. How do you think venture capitalists look at dating, and what advice would you have for someone?
I mean, I think venture capitalists generally run away from dating sites incredibly rapidly and for great reason. It takes unbelievable innovation, execution, and catch to genuinely disrupt. And honestly, basically nobody's been able to do it in this, like what I keep calling this mainstream dating space. I think that it's possible, which is obviously one of the things that we're betting on and our backers are betting on. But to anybody who's aspiring to create a dating site, I'd say maybe come talk to me first. I wouldn't suggest it necessarily unless you have really an explosive idea, unbelievable drive, and a really, really smart team. So those are my quick thoughts. And I've talked to many, many, many VCs who understood that we have those qualities, and many of whom have supported us very intelligently, I think, and many of whom have expressed lots of interest. And I think that they all understood, all the smart ones really understood this dilemma and the challenges of trying to create a company in such a saturated, private, non-viral, established space.
So to the end of raising money, I mean, obviously Scout has raised a ton, with Andreessen Horowitz. What do you think is, because I've read the papers on what they have done, but going to your point on Scout versus Baidu, what do you think is unique about Scout in terms of their approach and why it's interesting from an investment thesis?
Well, I don't know how interesting it is from an investment thesis. I mean, I respect Andreessen Horowitz tremendously and all of the team there, and I'm very interested to see what happens out of that. Obviously, they're investing in this very rapidly growing, huge network. I do think it can make a lot of money, and it's cool from that perspective. Like, the actual user experience is pretty atrocious. Their process for converting users and building the kind of virality and so forth dynamics that have allowed them to grow so fast are things that I think appeal to some people but are like pretty profoundly non-appealing to many people, and very, very difficult to turn that into like a sticky long-term experience. Will they make a bunch of cash? Yes. Do I understand the dynamics of the combination of international, incredible work around ad arbitrage, the use of mass messaging techniques like the wink bomb that allow for sort of the experience of something personalized coming out of something that was like an incredibly non-personalized act, the use of like staff messaging to drive usership, all these things that are like smart. I mean, I get it. I like totally understand, and I think it's cool that they're working on that. Do I think that that's like an exciting big brand business ultimately? No. I don't, but that's just my personal bent, and I totally understand why somebody would invest in that. If I was an investor and I saw that kind of growth, I would at least consider it. And so, power to them. I'm looking forward to see what they do. And in terms of why it works, I mean, I just listed all the reasons.
Yeah,
and if you
exactly.
combine that with mobile distribution and like really solving mobile distribution, which almost nobody has been able to solve outside of the game industry, I mean, they've done a sweet job. And that's from that perspective. Like, I wouldn't use Scout, but whatever.
Got it. Well, Aaron, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it, and for helping out with iDate, and look forward to meeting you sometime soon.
Great. I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and it's good to take the time to step back and reflect.
Thank you.
How you can make this thing work.
Oh, you do? Awesome.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to do. I don't know if pulling in all people's extra information is really going to, I don't know, be that powerful. But you guys are going after Scout and Badu. That's how you should be thinking about it, I think. But from a social perspective, and maybe if you somehow figure out your virality mechanics, you can. You can go after Match and us and all that stuff.
What do you see as some of the core challenges, just out of curiosity? I mean, because obviously the entire system is built around privacy and the ability for consumers to be anonymous. And so we don't publish to the wall, we don't share out, unless the consumer wants to do that. But by
I
default,
think you should basically completely abandon that. You should get a great UX designer to completely